Okay. I'm going to give this just a couple more minutes. There we go. Reggie, why it looks like this is probably going to be the group for today. Why don't you go ahead and get started?
Yeah, well, want to thank everybody for joining us today. This is one of our weekly sessions regarding Lantrn.ai, and basically, we're going to give you some concepts today about what it is that we're building, what it's for. It's definitely for publishers, but basically want to introduce you. I'm Reggie Ellis. I'm one of the co-founders of Lantrn. Also on the call today are the other co-founders, Paul Myers and Ryan Clark. Paul's going to go ahead and do the presentation, but we're all here to answer questions later, and certainly looking forward to speaking with some of you either in the chat here or in person sometime. So I'll pass it over to Paul, and he's going to lead the presentation.
Perfect. Well, like Reggie said, so Reggie is a co-founder, Ryan is also a co-founder, and then Sarah also on the call. She's our marketing manager. So I appreciate you guys, Adam and Gina, for joining us. I'll go ahead and share my screen so we can start walking through the presentation. Okay, so this is our presentation. This is Lantrn.ai. I am the co-founder and CEO, Paul Myers. Today's presentation is to walk you through Lantrn AI from concept to product. We'll go over who Lantrn is, why we're building Lantrn, what we're building, and how we think it can help your publication. But most important, we want to hear what your challenges are as publishers or managers within a publishing company, and how a Lantrn assistant might meet your publication's needs. Oops. So who is Lantrn? We've already kind of gone through those introductions, but more importantly and more in depth, Reggie is a journalist for 3 decades and publisher for over 20 years, and he is a majority owner of Mineral King Publishing, which has 2 newspapers in Tulare and Fresno counties in the California Central Valley. Reggie believes that AI can help secure the industry's future. Ryan Clark is the former owner of our cloud-based technology company, nClouds, and brings nearly 3 decades of experience leading digital transformation across global organizations. Uh, Ryan is passionate about local news and combines technical expertise and the collaboration to empower publishers. And then myself, I've spent more than 12 years in the local publishing space as both a journalist and publisher. I've led a successful turnaround to sustainable growth in my first publishing company, which I share with Reggie Ellis, who, by the way, I do need to rewrite this. Reggie and I led a successful turnaround of Mineral King Publishing. So not to upstage the man. My vision leverages AI assistance to unlock the full potential of local publishers in the for-profit news market. So, why Lantern? We're in local journalism because we believe it's a calling. But ever since the internet disrupted the business model, communities have suffered from a shortage of reliable local information, not because the need disappeared, but because the funding to support reporters did. If we are ever going to hire more journalists and empower our communities with local news, we have to begin with efficiency and revenue generation, and to do it in a way that doesn't blow up our budgets or burn out our staff. And we think that Lantern is the first step toward making that possible. Our mission is to widen publishers' profit margins by first streamlining their public notice and sales operations using AI powered assistance. And we believe that Lantern's tools will finally allow publishers to sustainably reinvest in their newsrooms now and into the future. So, how do we build Lantern AI? We didn't officially start Lantern until February of this year, but the seeds were planted months earlier. Back in November 2023, we were already trying to design AI workflows for publishers, starting with the most obvious part of the business, which was editorial. At Mineral King Publishing, like a lot of local newsrooms, we wondered if AI could help lighten the load for reporters. Could it help write stories, generate headlines, or speed up production? That's where everyone was looking, so that's where we started too. Um, this is partly, I'm sorry, let me collapse this window. There we go. But here's the thing about using AI in journalism. The work isn't in the typing, it's in the interviews, the research, the judgment. Even with AI, a reporter still needs to know what matters, who to talk to, and how to ask the right questions. And when it comes time to write, most good reporters aren't satisfied with a generic draft. They're tweaking word choice, adjusting tone, rewriting for clarity, and you should have just written it yourself. After months of experimenting and frustration, we came to a clear conclusion that editorial automation wasn't the best place to start. So we took a step back and looked harder, not just at our workflow, but at the structure of our entire business. The truth is, reporters don't generate revenue, they generate audience. And Google and Meta have taken the vast majority of our audience. As a result, local advertising doesn't fund as much of the newsroom as it once did. And without revenue, we can't hire reporters. And without reporters, there's nothing to sell. So we asked ourselves, where in the company does the money come from? And how can we make that part of the business the most efficient that it can be? So the problem on our current path is that a lot of larger papers have started by squeezing more out of their reporters, turning them into one-person content factories who tweet, film, edit, write, and post. Small local outlets have tried versions of that too, but the margins are never wide enough. It leads to burnout, worse coverage, and eventually more layoffs and closed newsrooms. We can't content our way out of this. Our journalism is good, but we can't afford to do more of it unless we fix the economics. That means either making more money and or spending less time to make the money that we already earn. Which is to say, if you're making as much content as you can, and just this is just an aside, in order to sell Google AdSense or something like that, what we have found is that one reporter can't make enough content to make the margins wide enough. So discovering the right use of AI, that's where AI finally started to make sense. Not in writing the news, but in powering the business that funds it. Once we pivoted away from the editorial side, we found a platform that let us build AI assistants capable of completing full tasks from beginning to end. So we asked, where do we already get consistent revenue? And the answer was pretty obvious for us: public notices. Our cities, counties, and school districts run them regularly. They're repetitive, reliable, and filled with tedious manual work. In other words, they were the perfect place for automation. So that's how Lantrn was born. We started by teaching our assistants to handle public notices from intake to camera ready, just clean, accurate, efficient processing, done in minutes, not hours. The time savings were immediate. The upside was huge. Our staff, once bogged down by rote tasks, could focus on marketing, outreach, and building stronger advertiser relationships. What we built wasn't just a tool, it was more of a strategy and a way to reclaim time, grow revenue, and begin to give local journalism a steady foundation. So where is Lantern right now? True to form, the publishing world, nothing about building Lantern has been easy. We've bootstrapped this company from day one. There are no investors, there's no full time staff. It's just long nights, weekends, and the belief that local journalism is worth fighting for. To this day, Reggie and I are still running day to day operations at Mineral King Publishing. Ryan is still pulling full time hours at Yahoo. And yet, we've built something that we know can make a difference. Right now, Lantern is in its beta phase, and we're looking for our first 100 publications to adopt these workflows to be early partners in reshaping how local news survives and maybe even finds a way to thrive. By the end of this presentation, if you'd like to set up a demonstration, please reach out to hello@lantrn.ai, and you can set up a date and time for a one-on-one demonstration. So how does Lantern work? Well, Lantern is an AI assistant built specifically for local news publishers, and it operates entirely through email. You'll interact with your assistant just like you would with a real staff member. In other words, the user interface is as simple as your inbox. There are no dashboards to learn, there's no software to install, there's no plugins or website tabs to manage. All you have to do is sit down with one of us, walk us through your public notice process, and we'll build an assistant tailored for your publication's needs, specifically in the public notice space. So Lantern can be broken down into two buckets right now. We have Lantern Basic and we have Lantern Pro. So Lantern Basic is a tool for your public notice staff. After your staff receive the request to publish, they will email it to their Lantern assistant, who will send back fully processed public notice set to your publication specs, an affidavit for when the run of the notice is over, and a quote and proof that you can forward to your client for approval. Lantern Pro goes beyond streamlining operations. It actively starts generating revenue in ways that would otherwise require 2 or 3 more staff. It includes everything in Lantern Basic, plus has direct contact with clients on your publication's behalf, providing them with a proof and quote and a link to accept payment 24/7. It gathers survey information from FBN filers to turn new businesses into sales leads. It scans all public notices for trustworthy content for editorial leads, and it generates reports on everything your Lantern assistant has processed since you started. So how to use Lantern Basic? Your Lantern assistant functions like an employee that you would only interact with via email. They are capable of receiving and responding to emails just as a real team member would. They're built to handle any type of public notice, including FBNs, notices to bid, trustee sales, lien sales, new ordinances, on and on and on. Each notice is measured and processed to your exact specifications. Here's what it looks like in practice. Your staff member who currently handles legal ad processing receives a notice for publication from a client. Instead of manually measuring, formatting, and quoting the notice, they simply forward the email to your Lantern assistant, which has its own dedicated email address. From there, the assistant processes the notice according to your publication spec requirements, measures it for accurate pricing, and generates a professionally formatted proof and quote. Within minutes, your staff receives a reply with everything ready to review and to send to your client for approval. Because we know you probably don't have a staff member dedicated to just that one job, we built Lantern Basic to help you take off one of your many hats that you wear at least a little more often. With a Lantern assistant, you can process a notice for publication from anywhere, even right from your phone. Instead of waiting to get back to the office to drop the notice into InDesign, format the paragraphs, change the font type, change the font size, and then measure it for pricing, your staff can just forward it to their assistant the minutes it comes back fully formatted, quoted, and ready to send to the client for approval. Lantern Basic is designed to give your staff their time back. They remain a critical part of your workflow, but they no longer have to spend hours on repetitive tasks like formatting type, adjusting spacing, or filling in names. Instead of getting bogged down in production details, they can shift their focus to more important work like chasing stories, selling ads, or strengthening relationships with readers and clients. What you do with those freed up hours is entirely up to you. So, how to use Lantern Pro? Lantern Pro builds on everything included in Lantern Basic, but it says one key difference, but with a few key differences. It removes your staff from the day-to-day handling of public notices almost entirely. Instead of managing each notice manually, your team steps into a supervisory role. They only get involved when the Lantern assistant encounters an exception, needs clarification, or flags something for human review. In many cases, the assistant can handle the entire process from intake to payment without any intervention at all. This frees up your staff to focus on higher value work, reduces the risk of errors, and ensures every notice is handled quickly and professionally. So let's take a closer look at what Lantrn Pro brings to the table, or more so of a review. Lantrn Pro has direct contact with your clients on your publication's behalf, providing them with a proof and quote. They gather information from FBN filers to turn new businesses into sales leads, scans all public notices for newsworthy content for editorial leads, and then generates reports on everything your Lantrn assistant has processed since it started. So Lantrn Pro takes everything from Lantrn Basic and levels it up, not just by saving time, but by directly supporting your bottom line. Your staff will still receive the same process public notice and quote formatted to your specs and ready to go. But with Pro, the client may have already reviewed the proof, accepted the quote, and even completed payment before your staff has to lift a finger. When Lantrn Pro plays its most pivotal role is in the FBN process. So let's take advantage of FBNs. The biggest value Lantrn offers publishers is in how it handles FBNs. Unlike law firms that regularly submit lien and trustee sales, or government agencies that consistently run bids and hearing notices, FBN filers are typically one and done customers. But with the right system in place, Lantrn can turn those single transactions into ongoing relationships in a few key ways. Right now, FBN filers walk in, you accept their FBN, and then they leave. When an FBN filer submits their notice through a Lantrn assistant, the experience feels familiar. They send an email with their notice, the assistant responds with a quote, and then payment is processed seamlessly, just like your current workflow, most likely. But Lantrn goes a step further by capturing valuable details from the filer during the process. It automatically collects key information by asking the filer for information such as contact numbers, mailing addresses, emails, and then a business location, and shares it with your sales team. That way, your team can follow up proactively with targeted outreach, turning routine legal filing into a potential advertising relationship. And after the submission, the assistant sends a personalized thank you email, invites referrals, and introduces your advertising options, both print and digital, as well as invites them to subscribe. The simple outreach helps transform a one-time legal requirement into the beginning of a potentially long-term advertising relationship. Your Lantrn assistant can also send follow-up emails featuring customized content like audience stats, testimonials, rate sheets, or new advertising promos, whatever else you have that you think that advertisers might want in order to advertise in your paper. And you control the timing, whether this is the next day, months later, or just for a holiday promotional, keeping your publication in front of new business owners exactly when they're ready to grow. So through being available for every opportunity 24/7 and encouraging every new business that files with you to advertise with you, we hope to turn this into this. So FBNs are just a starting point. They're one of the strongest starting points for advertising growth in local papers. These are brand new businesses, often run by first time owners who are still figuring out where and how to market themselves. That creates a rare opening to position your publication as a trusted modern partner. It's your chance to show that newspapers aren't outdated or irrelevant. They're community rooted platforms with real reach. A strong first impression through your print and digital products could be the start of a long term advertising relationship. As well, according to Burrell and Associates, a leading media advertising research firm, in case you haven't heard of them, local digital advertising cleared a historic threshold in 2024, topping $100 billion and counting, and accounting for 70% of all local ad spending. That's a complete inversion from the 90s when print dominated. The shift didn't just happen, it accelerated after the pandemic. Businesses aren't just spending differently, they're forming faster than ever, and that's where the opportunity lies for us. Burrell notes that the post-pandemic business filings have surged to 5 million per year, boosting the small business population by 4.7% in 2024. These new businesses are flooding local markets and overwhelming traditional prospecting methods. Many of them are run by people who left or were laid off from previous jobs and decided to launch something of their own. These owners and the entry-level marketers they often hire are open to ideas. Surprisingly, they're twice as likely as older businesses to increase spending on newspapers, radio, and TV. So the window is open, we feel, for local news to begin to reclaim some of that advertising, that local advertising dollars. This isn't just a trend. We think that it's a window of opportunity. Survey data shows rising confidence in the effectiveness of legacy media, even as trust in local digital sales reps declines. But we get it. Most publishers feel stretched thin. We often do. You can just talk with Reggie and myself. You may not have the time, staff, or systems in place to chase new advertisers. We struggle with that all the time. That's where Lantern comes in. We believe we can help reduce the effort it takes to turn new business filings into paying advertisers, automating follow ups, capturing leads, and then giving your team more time to close the deal. These are some of the things that we currently have under construction. In the near future, our Lantern Assistant won't just process public notices, it'll help power your newsroom. By scanning for keywords, trends, and unusual filings, Lantern will be able to flag potentially newsworthy items and surface them directly to your editorial lead. A new development proposal, a controversial ordinance, a sudden trustee sale, your reporter will know about it before anybody else. And that's another step toward using automation, not just to save time, but to sharpen your journalism. Lantern as a business network, or rather your newspaper as a business network using Lantern. Lantern is also being designed to play a convening role in your business community. As new FBNs are filed, your assistant can help connect those business owners with each other, creating a local network of entrepreneurs. Whether it's a simple welcome series, cross-promotional opportunities, or invitations to local events, Lantern can help position your publication as more than just a place to advertise. It becomes a hub for local commerce powered by AI. In the future, Lantern will include a dedicated sales assistant built to help your reps focus on what they do best, building relationships. Your Lantern salesperson is meeting with clients in person, or sorry, your salesperson is meeting with clients in person, while Lantern assistants will be working behind the scenes, coordinating email outreach, drafting ad campaign proposals, and automating follow-ups. This dual approach boosts both quality and efficiency, helping small sales teams punch above their weight while making every touch more meaningful. And here is a product that is most like us in the space, Column. Column is the only comparable company in the local news environment. Unlike Lantern, they play an outside middleman role where cities and law offices can place their public notices with Column, and then they place those notices in partnering publications for a 10% processing fee. Column showed us that there is more than enough value in the public notice space for non-publishing companies to build off of. And then that made us think that if a company can build itself off of your revenue stream, what could publishers do with the right set of tools? Our price. Lantern Basic comes in at $49.99 per month for a 7.5% processing fee per notice, locked in for at least the first year of your contract. There's an asterisk here. Lock in the 7.5% processing fee per notice for the life of the contract by recruiting another publisher as one of the first 100 early adopters. Lantern Pro is $499.99 per month and a 7.5% processing fee per notice. Early adopters will begin with Lantern Basic before being introduced to Lantern Pro. I want to be sure that I can take any questions. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you, answer your questions, or show you how Lantern can support your publications. You can email, like I said before, hello@lantrn.ai. You can find our website at lantrn.ai. LinkedIn, YouTube, Substack are also places where you can find some of our content. That is what I have for my presentation. Like I said, I really wanted to hear from the publishers that are on the call in case you guys have any questions or if we can just talk about any pain points that you have as publishers.
Hey, so hi, my name is Adam Dawes. I'm the CEO of the Embarcadero Media Foundation. We're a network of publishers in the Bay Area. We run 7 different publications. Gina, who's also on the call, is the president of our East Bay division. So we're actually just one publisher here. So we currently use Column. We've been very happy with Column. We find that um, it has simplified things dramatically, but there is still a fair amount of work that needs to happen with respect to just kind of answering questions. There is like a certain amount of like proofreading and stuff that needs to happen, like for the public notice to actually be effective. It needs to run at the right time, and there's all these really tricky things that if you screw them up, it actually doesn't get the business owner what they want. And so that kind of
Hmm.
error checking and all of that and back and forth correcting that, where uh, the customer kind of knows what they want, but they sort of make mistakes, filling out forms that get sent to the county correctly based on the information, receiving the certification from the county, uploading that back into Column to then allow the customer to, uh, you know, get the final documentation that they need as a proof. It's all in those sorts of things
Hmm.
that we still find that there is, a fair amount of time. Have you looked at Lantern as a means to help support something like Column?
Uh, I think I'm going to introduce Reggie back into this one. He has dealt with the public notice side of Mineral King Publishing more than I have, and I think that he can probably answer your question better than I would. So, Reggie, you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, can you restate it? Sorry, I was responding to Gina in the chat, so I didn't quite hear everything.
Yeah, again, we use Column now. We like it. It's simplified things a lot. All the kind of design aspect is a self-serve thing, and that generally works. But it's, validating that the submission is fully correct, that it jives with the paperwork that goes to the county, that they also upload, that they're in full agreement, processing, getting the responses back from the county and uploading them back to Column, you know, answering questions that, people are doing. So, um, you know, Column was a great step forward, but there's still probably more time that we need to take to get all of that done across we still have 3 print publications, and so that's where we're
Got it.
doing this. So have you ever considered how Lantern could work with Column to be able to take care of all of those aspects of the process?
I mean, I don't think we've really discussed like a partnership with any other companies. I would say that as I think that Lantern is customizable and we can add things to workflows as we go forward. I mean, you have to start with basic and then we can work our way from there. But as far as like making sure that the paperwork, in other words, the notice matches the paperwork that was submitted, um, Lantern does that. And as far as like generating an affidavit, Lantern can do that too. I was just telling Gina on the chat. Each county is a little bit different. So again, Lantern's customizable because affidavit requirements change. Some counties it's completely digital and that's fine. In our county, we have to have a wet signature and mail it or drop it off. So it would really, we would meet with you, figure out what your county requires. Um, I mean, we could certainly lobby on your behalf to see if like your county would be interested in switching to a completely digital thing. The lobbying hasn't worked great in our county, but we're always willing to have a conversation with someone and work on that. I mean, what other specific gaps that you're talking about and what Column does, or is it just kind of the verification of is the notice correct based on the paperwork we received, or was there some other gap that you were wanting to tackle?
I think that I'm not intimate in the process, so to properly see what the opportunity is, we'd need to pull the people that actually process these things uh,
Sure.
and understand what the biggest pain points are. But Gina, what was it that Kevin spends? His estimate was he spends about 5 hours a week managing public notices. Is that right? Do I remember that right?
Five, 5 to 8, yes.
5 to 8.
Okay. So a whole day.
Yeah. And obviously that isn't all happening in one day. That's,
Sure. Yeah.
throughout the week, and it's very interrupt driven. So certainly like all of the questions, like one would think that could be automated. We've developed a, sort of sales tool that directs everybody to call them and does all that kind of stuff, and that answers most stuff. But a lot of people don't like to read, and they want to just get their specific question answered. And so a bot could theoretically be an enhancement to how that process goes on the front end. And then yes, this verification, and then I think the upload. Those are the things that I guess are clear enough to me that Kevin spends his time doing. But I imagine that there are more detailed things as well.
Tell me what you know about this, the verification process. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Probably not. I don't know if Gina,
Okay.
have more details on that works. I mean, my very simple understanding is that in column, they sort of fill out the details of what they want in the ad.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to, based on the county, there's a specific form that they have to fill out. And
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be in accordance, those need to match. And if that's not the case, then it's an invalid ad. There are very
Sure.
timing issues about when the publication appears. Um, there's some error conditions that if you have an error, you might not find out about it until you've gone through things with the county. And so then if somebody's operating their business already and the county rejects it, it's like, blah.
Right.
So
So is it fair to say that you're speaking mostly to the FBN process, right? As opposed to like a lien sale or like trustee notice or anything like that?
Yes, because
Okay.
the other ones come through attorneys.
Got it. So what Lantern would do, and so whenever we would sit down with you, is that we'd get some of those particulars on the on the books. And when a FBN filer submits their fictitious business name that they got from the county, that Lantern assistant would have essentially, you can think of it like a checkbox. Are these things fulfilled? And most importantly, was this filed with enough time for when it will be published? So if your publication dates uh, were in its first run would be after this FBN had expired, essentially what a Lantern assistant would do is reach back out to the advertiser, to the filer, and say the dates won't work for this, or like you have to go back to the county and refile whatever it is that you would want the assistant to say. We would work that out with you and we would customize it for that instance. Or another, but probably most likely, is we would introduce a human in the loop. So when something like that happened, your assistant would flag the person whoever is the point person of saying, "Hey, I have this notice. Some of the dates don't look quite right. Can you review this, please?" And then you could work that from there. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Okay. But those are one of the several things that we would probably talk through while we're setting up a demo and working through this public process with you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm curious, your stack, what LLMs are you using underneath, and how is this sort of structured?
So I'll kick that over to our CTO and Vice President, Ryan, if he can't. Thank you, Ryan. He would be best to answer that question for you.
So this is something we built the system to be very modular. So that whole space is kind of in a race, and where you have competing LLMs that are trying to create segmentation or different alignments. We largely review them from a technical capacity, whether they deliver on our needs, and then we have the ability to just sort of swap those in and out, depending on if there is a client that if favors a particular one or has alignment with one. I think that's a space that since we started building this is it's unbelievable how much that's changed. I probably worn off an eraser, swapping out which one we're pinned to. So we built a very modular system in that regard, and we we're big fans of open source. We're not into aligning with a lot of proprietary tools by nature. So that's sort of how our particular stack is looking right now. But we are flexible. If there's a requirement to use a particular LLM or develop a homegrown one with certain requirements, whether regulatory or otherwise, we're comfortable with making that align with your particular deployment. So the answer is whatever you need, basically.
So are you generally using like Llama or DeepSea or something like that? Is that kind of the typical instance?
Yeah, we're big fans of Llama and variations of it. I think we're seeing more and more sort of pre-baked industry specific stuff that gets good results at really efficient or inexpensive from the architecture side of things. And we also tend to build out our assistants to have a lot of oversight. So the easiest way to say this is that we have a lot of simple assistants we break down a task into a lot of simple functions, and then we coordinate with that with a single like sort of smarter assistant before we engage with communicating with people, so that we're not using a lot of infrastructure costs to answer basic questions, and sort of attacking the problem with a team of simple agents that generate I like a lot of binary answers. Does this qualify? Is this filled out? Yes or no? Not does this comply with philosophy? So that's sort of how we build out a lot of our workflows. It also gives us a lot of flexibility when there are specific either requirements or rules that might apply in a certain jurisdiction, because we're not asking an LLM to interpret that. Really break the test down to very red light, green light type of questions, like does this work or not?
So you're creating these specific discrete tasks, events, whatever, what have you, and then have workflow logic using the LLM, more advanced LLM to work its way through the set of possible tasks and things in the workflow.
Yeah, and we also build around a sort of quality assurance process as well, which is a separate agent. And then of course anything that looks unusual or doesn't meet that standard, the process then kicks it over to the human to review. All of our processes have a design philosophy around having humans manage the exceptions and try to get as much information around those exceptions to the human when that exception happens. So basically, the person can jump in and they're they're brought up to speed and bootstrapped into the problem and understand it quickly. In that, because that's where all the delay is and inefficiency is in the communication side is collecting that information. So that's basically the sort of mindset around.
Uh-huh. And this logic layer of the events and such, what how flexible is that? Is that learning? So if an exception is made, that it's taking the inputs and learning and improving its ability to reason through those things in the future?
Yeah, we definitely, especially on the communication side, we really want to make sure that we have the ability for each publication, not just a media group, to capture a sort of a voice for that publication. A lot of this is, it's not a matter of, we don't want the agents to try to sound human or trick people, but we do want them to align with the sort of community perception around the organization. So if there's an informal publication that does a lot of community engagement and just has that style, we would like that communication to match how the people in that organization work. So not only do we want it to sort of fit that tone, we'd also want, for example, if we keep having a problem with a particular form, we would want to be able to flag that and understand why that is, and maybe change the way that we present that form or change the wording. Look for ways to reduce that type of a problem. Just the standard sort of automation review. Basically, every sort of pain point that comes up is like try to understand it better and figure out a way to communicate differently to reduce it.
Mm-hmm. So you're starting out on the public notices side, but you mentioned sales as well. What are you sort of envisioning on the sales side?
So
Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead, Ryan. Sure, if you want to.
On the technical side, it's a similar process. It's going to come down to, can we take this information and bubble it up to a sales process internally, whether that's like Slack, email, whatever, to just bubble those opportunities up. Again, it's more a matter of making these things available and easy for a sales team to kind of review, discard, and take that feedback. It's like, oh, they're not really interested in these sorts of things, and try and bubble things up that are more useful. More than anything, it's like we're touching that information, and we want to make sure that other components in the organization get presented that information in a way that they're going to recognize it. So, for example, block and tackle for publication isn't maybe going to just naturally show up in the sales team the right way because of the email, but the sales team might be on Slack and then have a group. And if that comes in a notice that says, here's the details of this, here's their launch date, you might want to follow up with that or something along those lines. It's the same information, but it's now presented in the way, in the sort of information flow that the sales team would be better to receive it or understand it. So kind of work in that same way. That's on the back end. I'll defer to Paul or Reggie on the elaboration.
Yeah, so a lot of what we were thinking and the framing that we're thinking in terms of sales is very similar to the way that we're thinking about public notices. So public notices are certainly fine for something like those rote tasks with measuring and those things. Sales is a little different in the sense that sales are oftentimes much better done between two people, either if not in person, then over the phone or over Zoom. And we are trying to get to a place where the humans are doing the human thing and the robots are doing the robot thing. So so say you're at a ribbon cutting, I like examples, so I'll use examples. Say that one of your sales representatives are at a ribbon cutting and they meet a new advertiser or somebody who's seeking to advertise. What your sales rep could do, and to make the process kind of move along faster for your publication, is hand them an email to their Lantrn assistant which would be named whatever it is that you would choose. And the potential advertiser would be either contacted or would interface with the Lantern assistant and with the options that you would want your potential advertiser to know. What kind of campaign are they looking to run? What type of targets are they looking to hit? How many people does your newspaper or your publications serve? Where do they serve? Those types of things. What is their budget? Those types of information, that type of information that a sales rep, can certainly get, but oftentimes it's a email back and forth with days in between or hours in between. We should probably just allow the Lantern sales assistant to help handle that. And so when they've reached a threshold of information, but again, whatever it is that you would set for that, they would then reach out to your sales representative to say, hey, we got this information. It ticks all the boxes that you were looking for. It's probably time that you reach out to them again. Maybe you can close the deal on this round or just get a new conversation going on what type of advertising whether it's digital or print, or if you offer a podcast, whatever that case may be. That's how I'm kind of envisioning this.
Yeah. But those are all futures. You haven't started working on that too closely yet.
Not too closely. We're really trying to get more of the public notice side under our belt. And in that, we're trying to uh, really build out Lantern Basic, try to get publishers to accept that, get comfortable with AI because we know that it's so new. We know that a lot of publishers are distrusting of it first, probably because they don't know a lot about it, and there's not anybody in the space who's offering it in a way that we think is responsible. Most of what we hear about AI is how it's writing stories and then getting those stories wrong. Sports Illustrated, I think Chicago Tribune just put out a story. I think it was like a summer book list, and some of those books didn't even exist. So those are the stories that they're hearing. We're trying to offer AI in a responsible way and in a way that will help you with the economics of your publications, not to undercut the journalism or to overstep in a way that the editorial team wouldn't want. So we're starting off with Lantern Basic because the human is firmly in the loop. They are working with the assistant one on one. They are handing it things that it knows, and the assistant is handing it back for review, and they can see and closely monitor the assistant, which is an AI workflow, until they truly feel comfortable and that they can hand it off for more direct conversations with the public. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. We understand that there's some barriers we need to break down between publications and AI. We think Lantern Basic's a good way to do that as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned trying, it's a goal to kind of capture the voice of each publication. What is the process for training the AI to be able to do that?
The,
I'm
the
going to let
biggest
Ryan
part,
take that one.
yeah, the biggest part is going to be we can start with samples of past communications. Just even getting the voice of sales teams communications with the public as an example. If there is a strong particular point of view or particular phrasing, we can capture that and kind of bake that in. And then we would do some A/B tests, basically communicate with the assistant as a customer, and test how those responses go and make corrections. Basically, it's kind of a custom thing right now. A lot of what we're doing and around this is, especially with the sales thing, is we're doing these types of sessions to basically talk with people about what their concerns are as well, because we feel like when you start doing this part, it's people have very specific workflows that exist and have maybe existed for decades, and so we want to understand those and see where we can augment those and make them better, not just come in and say, here's the three options, here's the drop down, you want you know business official or whatever. We really want to try it. We think that the opportunity with the assistant side of things is a big open field, and so we really want to try to capture that instead of sort of shoehorn people into one of three options type of a thing. So that's where we're at right now. We also think that this is we're talking with sort of beta customers on this because we want to find the best ways to do that. And again, I know at least right now, and when I interact with a sort of an agent, and it comes off very, very synthetic, it's kind of off, it's pretty off-putting. And I think what we're doing right now is in a space that's not so much sales. I think would be potentially really could get things really wrong just by the tone. So we think that's an area worth investing in if we're gonna get into and be effective in sales. Having that tone process being highly custom and something that's we rate as pretty important.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. So I'll talk to some of the folks that are more into this process and bring them up to speed on what we learned today and see if we wanted to kind of kick the tires further. But I mean,
Sure.
I think at this point, like, we would only be interested in sort of wrapping around the column process. We don't want to upset that at least at this point in time. So it's really to deal with the interstitial stuff around that.
Sure. One of the things that will, if you guys reach out and kind of looking for a demo, Ryan, Reggie, and I are very much interested in coming down in person because we really like to have these kind of conversations, especially for demonstrations, not over Zoom, but in person to learn more about your publication too. So um, keep that in mind. We'll probably set up a date for that for something that we can meet on.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot, Adam. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Take care.
All right, you too.
Stop recording. Thank you for the reminder of recording, by the way, Sam.
You're welcome.